Raukawa Claims Settlement Bill, first reading.
Honourable Tariana Turia.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Raukawa Claims Settlement Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Māori Affairs Select Committee to consider the bill. This Saturday is the unveiling of Kaumātua George Wakatoi Rangitutia. As we remember him, we remember his crucial leadership. George was chair of the Raukawa Trust Board who started this latest negotiation phase, and I know that today he would be very proud of this milestone. There are many others no longer with us, but whose legacy is written into this legislation. This is a settlement built on the vision of honouring the words of tūpuna and building a strong foundation for tamariki mokopuna. Me hoki wakamuru kia ahau wakamua kāneke. The future is behind us. This settlement legislation is the absolute result of the Crown's actions and omissions. In this first reading, we acknowledge the impact of the Crown's interventions upon the Raukawa, their commercial, social, cultural and spiritual relationships with the land and waterways and their rohe. There is no question that the Crown failed to protect Raukawa from becoming virtually landless. This restricted their ability to participate in new economic opportunities and contributed to the economic, social and cultural impoverishment of Raukawa. Inevitably then, in anticipating what tomorrow will look like for them, it is not just useful, it is vital that we look back over the history that has led us to today. In telling the story, we must travel back to the wars of the 1860s. What this bill makes known now is that the Crown acted unjustly in sending Crown forces into the Waikato in July 1863 and occupying the land in the region between 1863 and 1864. The final battle of the Waikato War took place between the 31st of March and the 2nd of April 1864 at Ōrākau. Approximately 300 Māori, a significant proportion of whom were Raukawa, defended Ōrākau Pā against up to 1,800 Crown troops for 3 days. If ever there was a tale of David and Goliath, this was it. One wonders at the courage and the grit and the determination of the people of this tribe in standing strong against great odds. As a result of the sacking of the peaceful town of Rangiaowhia, many innocent Raukawa peoples were killed, including women and children. Those who escaped found their way back to the paramount chief of the day, Te Pairata, who led Raukawa forces against the invasion at Ōrākau. Some escaped, many were killed, including Te Pairata. After that battle at Ōrākau, Raukawa participated in fighting in Tauranga, particularly at the battles of Gate Pa and Te Ranga, including the Bush campaigns. It was this support that led to the confiscation of the Raukawa lands and the earliest of land courts. Raukawa trialled the land courts that would eventually sweep throughout Māoridom. Because of their actions, the Crown confiscated land at Tauranga and the Waikato that Raukawa had interests in as punishment for what the Crown regarded as rebellion. It is deeply ironic that the Crown returned some land to individual members of Raukawa hapu residing in Tauranga, but none to the hapu of Raukawa within Waikato. The loss of life and property because of war and raupatu had a severe impact on the overall well-being of Ngāti Raukawa. And so today we think back to the confiscation of land and loss of life during those wars. We think about the alienation of land through the operation of native land laws and subsequent Crown and private purchasing. And we acknowledge the impact of this history on the economic, social and cultural impoverishment of this iwi. To give some sense of what we are talking about, in a census at the end of the 1800s, Raukawa was identified as one of the largest tribes of this country. Close to a century later, in the 1980s, Raukawa had been reduced to seeking alliances with surrounding tribes such as Tūwharetoa, Waikato, Tainui and Te Arawa tribes to retain their identity. And this then is when the transformation started to occur. At this time, the descendants of Pairata and other kaumātua of Raukawa resurrected the name of their tūpuna under the mantle of the Raukawa Trust Board and filed their first claims Y443. These early trustees and kaumātua, many of whom are no longer with us, now paved the way for the contemporary claims to be considered and negotiated. Some 28 years later, in May 2008, Raukawa mandated the Raukawa Trust Board to negotiate on their behalf for the comprehensive settlement of the historical Treaty of Waitangi claims of Raukawa. The Crown recognised the mandate on the 23rd of September 2008. The rest is their history, and our history as a parliament, and our history as a nation. This is the day that we acknowledge Raukawa, their ancestors and their descendants. It is deeply interwoven through the hearts of the generations of Raukawa, whose recent and past history is one devastated by suffering and hardship, a history which resulted in the loss of life and was destructive and demoralising to this tribe. In the legislation today, it is noted that Raukawa has practised manawaka haere, kaitiakitanga and ahikaroa within their rohe. In saying this, the government pays tribute to the special relationship that Raukawa holds to the land and the waterways in this area. Waterways in particular have been the centre of Raukawa commercial, social, cultural and spiritual life. And so, as a nui from the rivers of Wangaihu and Whanganui, I acknowledge Raukawa in this pivotal day. I want to thank Minister Finlayson for allowing me the privilege of opening the debate on this auspicious day. A day of tears, a day of memories, a day to recall the enormity of the losses borne, but also a day to anticipate the next steps forward. I have a deep affection for the peoples of Raukawa, in fact so much so that I have somehow managed to attract one of their brightest young leaders into my office, Tēnā koe Chris. Finally, I mihi tū Vanessa Paraima, the dynamic energy force who, as the chair of Raukawa, is tasked with implementing the outcomes of the settlement. I have to say that the pace of the settlement has been extremely slick and impressive. That reflects well on the leadership, but also on the commitment to kotahitanga, the pursuit of a shared future horizon. There is a bold future plan included, which other speakers will attest to today, which encompasses a wide range of opportunities for development. I am particularly interested in two aspects of the settlement: the right of the first refusal for 171 years over 84 properties owned by Housing New Zealand, Waikato DHB and the Crown, should they be declared surplus to requirements, and the Cultural Fund and Cultural Redress package designed around Raukawa's aspirations to reinvigorate their relationship with cultural sites of significance. There are particular aspects of whānau ora, of our ability to thrive as people, to plant a legacy for our mokopuna and to keep all our families safe and well now. And I commend Raukawa for the vision and the commitment for this work. Finally, I acknowledge Nigel Tehiko as the Chief Researcher, Phyllis Tahere, Pat Cowley, Mel McKenzie and Phil Moretti as the backbone of that team. And most of all, I pay my acknowledgements to the kuia, the koroheke, the pākeke, the rangatahi, tamariki and mokopuna, who seek to participate in new economic opportunities and challenges emerging within their rohe in the 20th century. Tēnā tātou katoa.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Honourable Shane Jones.